Welcome back for part 2 of my conversation with Dr. Kay Stahl. If you haven't listened to part 1, pause right now, go back, and then come meet us here. We talked about a research framework for reading development, why diagnostic assessment matters, and what fluency really means. Part 2 is for every family heading into summer wondering how to keep reading alive without it turning into a battle. Today, we're talking about what to do when your child says they are not a reader. We're talking about what actually counts as summer reading, and I promise the answer is more generous than you think. Kay makes the case for never stopping read aloud, no matter how old your kids are. We talk about what reading resistance and struggle look like at home, and we end with a research finding that completely reframed how I think about comprehension. It turns out talking and writing about books is not enough. Children need to make something, a map, a podcast, a book on their own. That's where understanding becomes real. This is your summer toolkit. Let's get into it. This is Schoolutions, the podcast that extends education beyond the classroom. A show that isn't just theory, but practical, try it tomorrow approaches for educators and caregivers to ensure every student finds their spark and receives the support they need to thrive. Welcome back, listeners. This is part 2 of my conversation with the wonderful Kay Stahl. We talked a lot about tips for families, tips for teachers when it comes to making a plan for summer success for children as readers. This, listeners, is all based on Kay's book with her co-authors, Kevin Flanagan and Sarah Lupo. And it's important to note that part 2 is going to focus primarily on creating a summer toolkit. So we'll offer different strategies, different ideas for caregivers and teachers as well to know what is maybe coming their way in the fall with their students. So thank you for taking the time to continue the conversation, Kay.
Thank you, Olivia.
Yeah. Let's start off with that idea of I hear families say, my kid doesn't like reading, and it always is crushing to my soul. But when I hear a student say, I'm not a reader, I see that more as a signal. What does that tell us when we hear a student say, I'm not a reader?
I think it tells me a couple things. They are going to typically avoid reading at all costs. And the other thing is it tells me is that they don't see that reading has value in their lives. And I think, and we look at things like motivation and the characteristics of the 4 traits of motivation. That one of those is that how much does the child value what reading can do for them? And so I think somebody who says that they just aren't a reader, it means that they don't really value reading and they haven't seen it be a value in their life.
So then, with that said, reading motivation then really, really matters. And I think it's important for families to really understand what counts as summer reading then. And because motivation, interests, they really do matter if a child's going to engage as a reader.
Some of the things that can enhance that is doing things together. I mean, what the research says is that social piece of reading is so important, and that's how we can build value. And I think when we talk about motivations, there are a few things. It's the attitude is just one of them. The value is a second one, but also you know concept is something we need to consider, how the child views themselves, and also their interest, whether they're reading things that are of interest to them. And how can we, as parents and teachers, build that bridge that will help kids realize that, yes, that it can be valuable in their lives as well. And like I said, some of the research says that those social experiences with their peers are so important in helping them cross the bridge to being motivated to read.
Well, and I'm also thinking, some families are able to take vacations over the summer, so the kids are out at restaurants, they're reading menus, they're reading comic books, they're reading brochures for different places. And so when we're talking about what counts as reading, I don't see it that a child has to sit with a novel in their hands. Reading is all around us, and there has to be a perceived need to access information that can go right to purpose and value, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's a value because, for example, in sports, I mean, I'm a big baseball fan, and there's so much to read about sports, whether you're reading about the players, whether you're reading, the statistics, whether you're, reading the program if you get one. And so, all those things that are also knowledge building. Whether it's cooking, whether it's also, I think, seeing movies and having discussions about movies that may not be them reading, but it is building the comprehension skills. And that is one of the things I do recommend to parents is that they not only when they are reading with children to be asking those kinds of high level questions, but also to do that when we are engaged in watching TV, watching movies, to really bring some of those reading competencies into that activity.
So this is a perfect segue because I have read aloud to both of our sons for probably much longer than most people read aloud to their children. Is there a recommended age, or what is the recommended age for people to stop reading aloud with their children?
I don't think we should ever stop reading to our children. Um, for one thing, it creates an intimate experience with your child. It's a quiet time. It's a special time. So for that reason, I think we want to always have that happening in our families. The other reason that we want to continue to read is in this day and age, so many books are being banned, so many books that are of value to what's going on in the world, to various and exploring various perspectives. And so I think if we're not going to be able to read those books in school with a knowledgeable teacher who is as she or he has been trained to do, then that responsibility now is being placed in the homes of the families. And so, therefore, that's the other reason that we want to really continue to read to our students who are older so that we can approach controversial topics with them or things that are going on in our world and be able to read about those even in a newspaper or online and different positions that people have and why they have them. So this kind of reading can be happening on our computers, on our phones, but it's still important for the adults to be uh, talking with children about those kinds of issues.
You're making me think this is something I had actually never considered, the idea of families being aware of books that are being banned within their school district or their area, and looking through those books to read them at home with children. As our boys have gotten older, it may not be that I'm sitting next to them reading aloud, but what we have done is read the same book separately and then come together to talk about it. And what I've found as a mom, it's been interesting because I read a book with my adult lens and have questions and perspective based on my experience. It's very interesting to hear questions that my 14-year-old may ask that he does not have the same experience as I do. And it gives me a much better entry point for conversation based on his knowledge versus me putting my perspective and beliefs on him that he may not even be aware of. And so that's been an interesting, and he'll get home and say, "Where are you in the book?" And so it creates this sense of urgency to not just keep up, but also, not read ahead or not disclose what's going to happen. And that's been really lovely as our boys have gone into middle and high school.
And even that is a social, not only is that, with a family and some people can do a read aloud, but that's one of those examples of that social reading experience that makes people enjoy reading more, which, those of us who are in book clubs, we like to get together with others and talk about books. Given to my own devices, I would just be reading mysteries all the time, but, expanding my reading and having my social groups to talk to about the books.
So, Kay, then when it comes to reading comprehension and building vocabulary with children, in part one, you talked about the kids over the summer keeping a morphology journal where they're breaking down words and looking at words that relate. How could we also then help kids build their vocabulary and comprehension knowledge over the summer?
Well, I certainly building knowledge is really important. It's the building the knowledge and having that really be the basic part of what you're doing with your children throughout the summer. Whether it's knowledge of nature, whether it's knowledge of cooking things. And so doing that and then having children actually talk about it with you. So here are the things that, having discussions, having uh, writing things. So children can create a book or can create charts or create maps, any kind of writing that they're doing. And also, what the most recent research is also showing is that not only talking, reading, writing, but to really demonstrate true comprehension, you also want to have some kind of product from it. So, whether it's a model that you're making, whether it's a book that you're creating, with visuals, whether it's something that you're doing on technology. All of those are things that can not feel like we're in summer school, but that are really enhancing our reading abilities because we're growing our vocabulary, we're growing our knowledge, and able to express and our ways of expressing it.
I love the idea of creating a map. And as you go through and see all of the places with free activities as a family, or a babysitter could do this with kids as well, or a camp could do this. So possibilities are endless. But I love the idea of that map then becoming something that's created to give to someone else that has not
Yeah.
done that same. Or if it's at a camp, it could be for campers the following year to do like a treasure hunt or something along those lines. So having that idea of an authentic audience, a purpose for creation, that is the idea of taking action and transfer. It's transfer learning 101. Oh, that's a fabulous idea. I want to also think a little bit too about what struggling or striving as a reader looks and feels like in a home setting, because that can be very daunting to families.
It can be. It can be daunting to those of us who are teachers as well. And, well, I think the first thing that you see is it's like we talked about before. And the other thing that I have found out, from running from the being privileged to serve in that reading clinic for those 15 years, is these kids who are avoiding reading are very smart and very sneaky.
Yes.
they they can they can avoid it and put the work off on me, and so they're very clever. And so that's the one thing that you need to be careful is that a lot of times they will find very smart ways of avoiding reading tasks that they that you as a parent might want them to be doing. And but it's hard because you know comprehension is an unconstrained skill. It's difficult because there's not it's you know there's not just one right way to do comprehension, and skills that are related to comprehension. um, they are related to what we call it in the book. We call it pulse points and roadblocks to understanding the text, such as vocabulary that they're unfamiliar with, or perhaps the text is structured in a way that is difficult. And I know even with my book club, sometimes people, I didn't like that book because, it was jumping around, each character was telling a different story, or I didn't know where we were in terms of the time structure. So that can be difficult for kids, as, and all readers. The other thing that changes is context. And so, for example, the level of support, and this is where parents can really step in. So, for some, say, classic books or books that you as a parent, you think, oh, well, gee, when I was in seventh grade, we all had to read X, Y, or Z and not keen on it. But what you can do, the, give a level of support, read it together, or read it like using paired reading or some other kind of technique that you can use so that you're doing some kind of shared experience with that. And then, so it's the context. Who is, how much help are they getting with this task? What kind of support is provided? And then the other thing is, the readers span of attention. Is it a topic they're interested in? Is it a topic they're not interested in? Is it, that they don't have the vocabulary or they don't have the background knowledge? So all of these are things even that parents, when you have, either a child who is a striving reader, those are some facets that I think you can take a look at.
I think that there's so much to be said about caregivers modeling reading and having TV off, having quiet time of where everyone is reading. It doesn't matter what you're reading. Could be a newspaper, could be a magazine. Some people read on their phones, which I don't know how you feel about that, but there is a lot of reading that happens, articles. But just that idea of reading and then talking about what you're reading. Okay, I'm dying to know. I think you said that research around taking action was from an actual book that recently came out. Do you have that? Could you say the title for us?
Yes, it's actually a series of 250 studies done by over 5 groups of researchers that were investigating comprehension. And it has been summarized, it looked like a summary, but has been summarized in this report called Reaping the Rewards of the Reading Initiative. And it's free and published by the National Academy of Education.
Amazing. How did you acquire that book?
Went to the National Academy link and or to their website, and then there's a link for it.
Awesome. Okay. I'm sure people want to get their hands on that. Um, I cannot thank you enough for your dedication to supporting teachers, to supporting children and their families with becoming readers, and the idea that all children can learn to read and are very capable if we read the signs, if we hold high expectations. And this is the 5th edition of Assessment for Reading Instruction. I am very grateful to have this fresh copy in my hands. But just to have this conversation captured with you is a dream for me. So thank you, Kay.
Thank you so much, Olivia.
This was fun. And when it comes to talking about reading instruction, it can be dry. And this was actually a very enjoyable, light conversation. So I thank you for that too.
Oh, thank you so much for your flexibility,
Yeah.
making it so comfortable.
Yeah. That is a wrap on part 2 of my conversation with Dr. Kay Stahl. I wanted to leave you with 3 of my big takeaways. First, reading resistance is an invitation, not a closed door. When a child says they're not a reader, they are telling you that reading has not found its value in their life yet. That is something we can change. Interest, social reading experiences, books that connect to what they already love, these are entry points. Families have more power here than they often realize. Second, everything counts. The menu at a restaurant, the baseball statistics, the movie you watched and then talked about at dinner. All of it is building vocabulary and background knowledge. The goal of summer is not to replicate school at home. It is to build the knowledge that makes the next school year feel possible. And you're probably already doing more of that than you think. Third, make something. This is the piece I did not see coming. The newest comprehension research says that talking and writing about what you read is not the finish line. Children need to produce something from it. A hand-drawn map of a place they explored, a little book they wrote and illustrated, a voice recording explaining what they learned. That is how knowledge becomes theirs. I highly recommend getting a copy of the book Assessment for Reading Instruction in your hands. Kay co-authored the book with Kevin Flanagan and Sarah Lupo. A link to the book is in the show notes, along with a link to Kay's website. And coming up next week on Schoolutions, I am so excited. I am sitting down with Coach Tom Gilardi, New York State Teacher of the Year and the force behind 15 million YouTube views, to talk about why PE teachers might be the most underestimated people in your child's school. From managing 64 kids in one gym to building a viral at-home fitness empire during COVID, Tom pulls back the curtain on what it really takes to keep kids moving, focused, and thriving. This conversation will completely change how you think about physical education. Schoolutions podcast is created, produced, and edited by me, Olivia Wall. Thank you to my older son, Benjamin, who created the music playing in the background. You can follow and listen to Schoolutions wherever you get your podcasts, or subscribe to never miss an episode and watch on YouTube. Thank you to my guest, Dr. Kay Stahl, for reminding us that reading is not a single skill to be mastered. It's a lifelong spectrum of constrained and unconstrained abilities. And the best thing teachers can do before summer is to know exactly where each child stands on that spectrum. Reach out to me at oliviawall.com to book a coaching session. I am happy to be a thought partner to help you cultivate curious learners who advocate for what they believe in. Tune in every Monday and Friday this month for part 1 and part 2 of my guest conversations with the best evidence-based, classroom-ready strategies that you can apply right away to better the lives of the children in your care. Your 60-second bite-sized piece of learning from our conversation will be waiting for you on Wednesdays to share. Take care, and thank you for forever getting better with me. See you next week.